All right, greetings everyone, and welcome to our Physicians on Call, one of my favorite pieces of the Just One Thing for Health program. We have tonight Dr. Riz Bakhari,
Okay.
and our subject matter is a challenge that Dr. Esselstyn actually provided us, which was reduce or eliminate eating salty, oily, and sugary foods. And I like to say we've got our resident surgical expert here who's going to tell us a little bit about who he is, how he got started in this whole food plant-based mission, and then we're going to jump right in. Hi, Dr. Riz, welcome.
Well, thank you. So my name is Dr. Riz Bakhari. I'm a vascular surgeon from the Dallas area. I've been practicing for about 20 years, a little over 20 years. I went to medical school in the 90s. My journey towards whole food plant-based nutrition was kind of twofold. It was both a personal journey and it was a professional journey. Concurrently, I've always been interested in being personally healthy. And we all have our ideas of what that is. And I used to be the kind of person who would eat a lot of fruits and vegetables and lean meats. And meat wasn't the focus of my diet, but I did consider meat a source of protein. Somewhere along the road professionally, I began to become frustrated that my patients who I was treating for strokes and heart disease and other things, I was more like plugging holes and putting out fires, but I wasn't helping them reverse or take care of their underlying problem. And this led me on a path to search for more knowledge. I eventually ran across and read the China study, which was very meaningful to me. I also ran across and read Dr. Esselstyn's data, information, etc. And that was really the turning point for me, was that he showed that through a plant-based diet, you can actually reverse cardiovascular disease. And that was meaningful for me because for decades, I've been treating patients with all these medications, knowing that they are just kind of holding the dam back, but they're not reversing the problem. And so our patients are spending billions of dollars on medications that aren't really helping them get healthier. They're just kind of treating a problem. When I found out that you can actually reverse cardiovascular disease through plant-based nutrition, I not only adopted it fully for myself, but I began to preach it to my patients. So my patients, we always treat risk factors, smoking being one of them. But I started to really focus on lifestyle nutrition and lifestyle, and in counseling my patients to try to improve their overall health. So that's how I got to where I am today.
And that's so interesting, Dr. Bakhari, because Dr. Esselstyn has, from what I've seen and read so far, a real, I don't want to call it staunch, but I'll say direct approach to correcting this issue. And one of the things that one of my friends and I were talking about earlier today was, for him, if you're in this situation, it's like go full swing, whole food plant-based, in order to get the reaction that you're looking for, which is stop, reverse, the whole 9 yards. What is that one of the things that actually intrigued you about this work?
Yeah, so I understand his approach. This is not a place for moderation. The patients he was treating were terminally ill. They were told that they couldn't have an operation and that most of them were going to die within a few months. So they were at the wit's end. There was no procedures that could be done for them. So when he got these patients, he instituted a very rigorous regimen, which, it wasn't saying, it just similarly, he's a surgeon as well, and we kind of think about cutting things out. So similarly, he had a very strict regimen, which was going to reverse the disease. It's not something to take lightly and just hope they get better, but by eliminating salt, oil, and sugar, which are three of the most devastating things of our diet, That's how you can quickly get to reversing the disease. These patients did not have any room to continue along the path of getting worse, because just a little bit worsening could have killed him. So he needed to stop the disease immediately and start reversing it. And that's where the salt, oil, and sugar comes in.
Great. That's good to know. I love how you kind of coined that into the S.O.S.
Yeah, S.O.S, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, the help. I need help. So, we're addressing this whole thing on salt, oil, and sugar. Is there one of the three that is like at the top of the list to look at?
Yeah, that's I don't know from his standpoint. I can't speak for him. I'm here today to try to moderate some of his information. To me, the oils are astronomical. I think people don't understand the significance of the oils that they are ingesting and what they are doing to our bodies. The oils are extremely important, but I think it really is everything taken together. One of the reasons I don't adhere to a reductionist approach to healthcare. In other words, I don't tell somebody just to go drink hibiscus tea to help their hypertension, okay, or to or to drink or to take turmeric to help their hypertension, because I think then they might just say, oh, I can just drink a bunch of tea, or I can just put a bunch of turmeric, but then they don't go and adjust the other aspects of their diet. So what I truly believe is that a well-balanced whole food plant-based diet is the best approach. And then that actually affects so many different areas. So that's kind of my approach to it. But I would, if you ask for one thing, I would say the oils are, in my opinion, the biggest thing I try to, pound down to my patients, is that you got to get rid of the oils. They don't realize that they get oils in everything. The refined foods, the processed foods, everything they buy, there's oil in it. But similarly, there's sugar in everything we do, and there's salt in everything. So those are very meaningful places where you can make an impact by trying to stop it.
So part of the key is recognizing that when you're adding salt or oil or sugar, it's on top of what's already there in the way of salt, oil, and sugar.
Yeah, and everything we buy, the best place to cook is at home. That's the honest truth. You know what you're putting into your foods. That's the only way to control it. Everywhere else, whether it's something you buy off the shelf or at a restaurant, you have no control over what they're putting in there.
Okay. Good to know. Well, one of the things that has come up also is, why have we not been getting this kind of information much sooner than now? Why have we had to progress on this track of, people telling us that processed foods was one of the best things we could do, and white bread was the best thing since sliced bread, and, all of these things. What's your theory on that?
Well, it's obviously that's concerning and frustrating. And this information has been out there for decades. And there's a lot of data to support it. But we are facing a huge barrier with customs of our people, our culture, advertising. There's the big business. There's a lot of reasons where information out there is, I guess they serve to confuse the situation. There's no money in eating a plant-based diet, and you won't see anybody making money from selling. No big companies are going to make money from selling broccoli, but there's a lot of money in selling drugs to treat disease. There's a lot of money in selling beef and poultry and eggs. So our society is entirely geared towards eating our standard American diet, and it's not in any way geared towards eating a plant-based diet. So that's kind of my short answer for it, obviously.
So we really are in the space of retraining ourselves, and thus the ripple effect to help to retrain within our cultures and our countries and the world, because what we do for ourselves is actually going to impact positively impact the planet. And, with that in mind, I know that a lot of people are feeding their pets their table foods. What's your take on that, and how might we kind of bring that into the conversation as well?
Yeah, well, I have never really formed a big opinion about feeding pets. Is that what you're asking about?
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of elaborate more what you mean by that?
Well, I've just in my, I'm big on feeding my pet healthy dog food, but I've seen a lot of people who feed their pets table food. And if the table food that we're eating is harmful to us, it's obviously harmful to the pets as well. Would you agree?
Oh, I mean, I guess that by association, that would be true. I mean, our pets, our animals, they're designed to eat their own diets. They're depending on whether they're omnivores, herbivores, or carnivores, and but there's nothing healthy about our standard American diet, and so passing it on to our animals, I can't see how that's good for them in any way.
And so to get a little specific, one of our questions was, we're putting salt in our food for every reason, including we think it tastes better. But what is wrong with sodium?
Yeah, so yeah, we are a sodium-filled society. There's sodium everywhere, and every American gets way more sodium than they need. The sodium is responsible for retaining water, and therefore an excess of sodium in our body causes high blood pressure. And so I think it is one of the most important aspects of high blood pressure in our society today. And nearly 1 in 3 Americans will go on to get hypertension or high blood pressure in their lifetimes. And we are exposed to sodium everywhere. It's in all of our canned foods. It's in the foods that they serve us. The average American should get about 2,300 micrograms of sodium on a daily basis, and actually, there's actually even more reduction in the number for our elderly, African Americans, people with kidney disease, and people with hypertension. They should get less than 1,500 micrograms, but the average American gets close to 4,000 micrograms on a daily basis. So you can see they get 2 to 3 times more than we should get. And all of this is leading to water retention and hypertension. And so I recommend to patients no added salt, just absolutely do not add salt, but also read the labels. If you're a restaurant, tell the waiter to tell them not to add salt, and read the labels. I mean, you can, when we buy our beans and our tomatoes and other things, we look at the label, and there can be astronomical amounts of sodium. I've seen some things where you get 800, 900, or 1,000 micrograms of sodium in just one serving. And if you imagine you can get that much in one serving, you literally got half of all the sodium you need in one day. So you can see where we can get it. Just every little bit adds up minute by minute. Every time you're doing something, you keep getting more and more sodium. And there's been studies that have suggested that if Americans cut back on their sodium by 50%, it would cut out a serious amount of hypertension in our country. So that's where, and then hypertension, to say, what's wrong with hypertension? Well, that leads to cardiovascular disease. And cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of Americans. So by reducing your sodium, you can reduce your hypertension and reduce your cardiovascular risk.
Awesome. Yes, we just had a comment come in that most people don't even allow themselves one serving. They have to have more than one serving of most foods, which,
certainly, yeah,
at one sitting, double, triple, amazing. You mentioned a couple of times, actually, you're going out to eat, telling the waiter that no added salt. Is that something that we can actually do? I've not experienced that, so yeah, help me out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that if you're going to go out to eat, you're going to have to take charge of your meal. And create a relationship with the waiter. I've noticed that oftentimes the cook is very willing to work with you. They're very proud to be able to create something that you can eat. But you can tell people, you can tell the waiter, I'm allergic to oil, and therefore I can't have oil in my food. Just make sure they do not do it. And so if you order veggies, order steamed veggies. You know, if you order rice, order brown rice. We do have to be very selective and careful about how we order our foods. And like I said, if you don't guide them, they're going to put all these things on there that try to make the food more tasty. My recommendation is to be very specific with your waiter.
Great, good to know. And what foods would you say are typically the most high in sodium?
Fermented foods, for example, but I also tell people to stay away from fermented foods. Soy sauce. I always encourage people, you know, you can, even traditional, you know, tomatoes over the counter, beans over the counter, they have lots of sodium added to them. Companies add sodium to make it taste better. Chicken breast, which, you know, you know, that's one of the things that they would do is they would inject sodium into the chicken breast to make it taste better. And one of the reasons I tell people to avoid meat as well. So the way you can protect yourself is when you're buying things from the store is to look at the label and assess the amount of sodium per serving.
And one more time, what is the recommended amount of sodium?
I think the exact number is about 2,300 micrograms per day for an average American adult. And then if you have some of the diseases that I was talking about, either hypertension or kidney failure, or if you're an African American, then they recommend 1,500 micrograms per day. Maybe milligrams. I'm sorry, milligrams. I apologize. I was saying micrograms, but it's milligrams. I just got some help there from that one.
Thank you for that. So let me kind of switch gears here and let's talk about oils a little bit more. You know, to eliminate all oils may be difficult for some people. Are there any healthy oils?
So twofold, yeah. Certainly, it is hard to eliminate oils from our diet. That's a very strict regimen. And what I'm telling people is what's the best option. And we always want to strive for it, but I don't expect anybody to always hit 100%. None of us are perfect. And when I espouse this kind of concept, I realize that you're not always going to be perfect in the way that you make your choices or in the foods that you get. Now, as far as are there any healthy oils, the straightforward flat answer is no. There are no such thing as a healthy oil. Those are just kind of concepts that you might hear from time to time in our culture, or something grabs on to something because there's a study here or a study there, and suddenly canola oil is good for you, or suddenly grapeseed oil is good for you. Oils, one of the things I recommend is you stay away from processed foods. Processed foods means you've taken something and you've put it through a process where it is no longer in its natural state. One example of that is you take an apple and you make apple juice. Well, apple juice is processed. It has no fiber. It's taken a lot of vitamins and minerals. And so it's not the same healthy thing as if eating an apple. So similarly, oils are processed. Whether you're getting it from an olive or from a grape seed or from something, you have just extracted the oil out of it and taken away all the other healthy vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, and fiber. And so an oil is a processed food in overall, but also the oils are calorie dense, and the oils are directly responsible for causing atherosclerosis. So the honest answer is there is no such thing as a healthy oil. If you're going to get your oils, then you get it within the form of your whole food plant-based diet, whether it's with avocados or whether it's with nuts and seeds or flax seeds. But again, I will tell you that Dr. Esselstyn, in his approach, actually even, but remember, he's approaching and fighting a very significant problem, which you have to reverse right away. So he says, no, limit your avocados and limit your nuts. So that's your answer.
Great. So I heard someone mention at one point that our bodies do need the fat, some sort of the fat from oils. Is that what we're getting with the nuts and the flaxseed? Is there another source?
Yeah, absolutely. We when you eat whole food plant-based diet and you're talking about avocados, nuts, and seeds, that is the source of healthy fats. And our society has just overdone the amount of fat in our diet. I think about 10% of our calories from fats is adequate and is what we need. And you'll get that by eating a good, varied, whole food plant-based diet.
Great, great. What about vitamin E oil and fish oil? What's the downside of those? A lot of people use vitamin E oil and will ingest it as well as put it on the exterior of the body.
Yeah, there was this craze a few years ago where suddenly everyone said, oh, vitamin E oil is the answer to everything. And everyone started using it. Then they came out and realized, oh, no, it's not. It actually causes a lot of problems. So no, I do not recommend vitamin E oil in any way, just similar to my previous answer. I don't think that placing oils on the outside of the body causes any issues or from a standpoint of absorption or ingestion, so it's not dangerous. But no to vitamin E oil. Great. And what did you ask about something else, another oil?
Fish oil.
Oh, fish oil. So, I guess we're always told we need to get our fish oils, our omega-3s. Is that what you're referring to? Mm-hmm. And our standard American diet is very high in omega-6 oils, which we get from all these other sources. There's supposed to be a ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s of 1 to 3. And what's happened is because we take in so many omega-6s, that level goes way up. Then we have to increase our omega-3 level to keep that 3 to 1 ratio. So they've been recommending omega-3 supplementation. But if you stop eating a standard American diet and suddenly your omega-6 oil ingestion comes down, then you don't need to supplement with omega-3. And you'll get plenty of omega-3s in your regular diet with nuts and flaxseed and stuff like that. So then you're able to achieve your 1 to 3 ratio without needing supplementation.
Okay. So in your regular whole food plant-based diet, you've got that ratio intact and don't need to do anything in addition to that where the omega-3 and omega-6 are concerned.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
Great. Looking here to see if, okay. Question came in, what if we have diverticular disease and can't eat nuts or seeds?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I can't, I honestly can't give you good, strong medical advice here. But I understand that nuts and seeds can be bad for it. You can do ground flax and ground chia. So then, therefore, you don't have the issue with digesting it and being a problem. You can take avocado, which will still have plenty of oils as well. And that's what I kind of think where you could put your efforts on.
Good to know. Thank you for that. Well, let's just switch gears once again and let's talk about sugar. What's wrong with sugar? People feel good after sugar. Of course, they then have a sugar crash, but...
Well, sugar is and the generic term is important. Our bodies run on sugar. Our body runs on glucose. Our brain needs glucose. So we need sugar, but the way we've transitioned our food products in our society is that we have these simple, refined, and processed sugars, which are broken down very quickly and provide a lot of calories very quickly in our body and causing spikes. So that's why I tell people to stay away from the refined and processed foods and simple sugars. The sugars that are healthy for us to get is the sugars in our standard plant-based diet, which we get through our vegetables and our fruits. When we ingest those, we get them in a way where they are a complete food, as opposed to a processed food where we're just taking in sugar. A complete food means it has the vitamins and minerals, it has the fiber, it has the phytonutrients, and it has the antioxidants. And so when you take in that complete food, it's managed in a way that the body was meant to handle it. You don't get sugar spikes, you get the fiber, which helps regulate it, and that's the better way to take it in. So we need complex carbohydrates, which are in fruits and vegetables, and not simple carbohydrates, which are in processed and refined foods.
Gotcha. And are there any good sugar substitutes? I mean, is stevia a good alternative?
You know, I don't think that there really are any good sugar substitutes. I recommend for when you're cooking or wanting to sweeten something, maybe use an agave or maple syrup. But stevia, I don't really recommend it.
Okay, I think I remember from the video, Dr. Esselstyn was saying just none of it.
You know, there's erythritol, which is recommended by Dr. Michael Greger, and that's a fairly natural sweetener. But at the same time, I think you can I tend to sweeten things with fruits and vegetables and natural sources.
Great. Are dates okay for a sweet break?
You know, that's a good question. I think dates are great. They are a whole food, and they are pretty sweet, so you can use them to do things. I use dates to sweeten my smoothies, and they turn out quite sweet, so you don't need sugar. They have their own complex carbohydrates in there. And so, yeah, I think dates are a nice fruit. Of course, just like anything else, you don't want to eat 20 of them in a sitting, but dates are good.
Okay. And there's a question about raw coconut palm sugar.
Yeah, again, it's a sugar. And so I would say it's a simple carbohydrate, which is going to be absorbed rather quickly. So I would not recommend it.
Okay. Now I know that there are a lot of other very good questions to be asked. I just don't know what they are. So I'm going to open things up for our audience. Is there anyone out in our audience who would like to ask Dr. Bakhari a question? And we'll let you even come on screen and ask your question if you'd like.
I'm going to scroll through there and see if there's been any questions asked that I can look at.
Okay.
So Abraham asks, is Himalayan salt with the plant-based a little better or no salt at all of any kind? And Abraham, I would recommend, again, no salt whatsoever. That's just part of the extreme. Now we're going to get salt and sodium in things every day. And this is, I might get shot for saying this, but this is my feeling is we shoot for the best. And when we're going to get little things here and there, and we end up with a 95% pure diet. And therefore, I think that will be healthier for it, because we make little mistakes here and there and throughout the course of the day, because none of us are perfect. But at the same time, I would not recommend adding any Himalayan salt.
And there are a lot of people who believe sea salt is a better alternative, and you'd say no to that as well. Is that right?
I'm sorry, I was reading a question, so I didn't hear you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's some who think that sea salt is a good alternative. It's more of a natural salt.
Yeah, it is. And I think that comes from, when you think about it, it is a natural salt, and it's not processed. It doesn't have the added iodine, and that you might get from something that's store bought. But at the same time, it's still a salt. It's still sodium chloride, and so therefore, according to Dr. Esselstyn's theory, no added salt. Abraham was asking about. He has a question here where his nails are chipping, and what to do for the calcium deficiency. And I think, Abraham, what I would recommend is to start taking in calcium-rich whole foods. I think the green leafy vegetables are rich in calcium. I think kale is rich in calcium. That's very easy to look up as far as what foods are high in calcium, and you can increase your intake. There's also, if you do buy any plant-based milks, there are some that are fortified with calcium as well. Let's see here. Michelle says, recommendations for plant-based foods that will raise low blood pressure like sodium does. Wow, you got me, Michelle. I've never tried to raise somebody's blood pressure. I believe that a blood pressure should be as low as possible that is tolerable. In 100 over 60, 95 over 60, unless somebody is symptomatic from it, then there's no reason to raise a blood pressure. And if you are symptomatic from it, then that might require a more thorough medical workup to see what's going on. But I wouldn't recommend raising blood pressure through diet unless there's a reason.
Great, thank you. So that was good, guys. Any other questions?
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for allowing me the opportunity to come here and moderate and share Dr. Esselstyn's information. If we can be of any further help, reach out to us. You can find all our information on plantbaseddfw.com. That's our website. Right there, you'll have all our links to our IGs, our YouTube. We have a meetup in Dallas, and so we are trying to raise awareness and spread the word and teach. And we're always happy to be involved.
Thank you. And please give us that website again.
Again, it's www.plantbaseddfw.com. That's all one word. Plantbaseddfw.com.
Or Dallas Fort Worth.
Yeah, that's what the DFW is.
Great, great.
I should have made a poster so I could hold it up for you, but I think. Actually, I can put it in the comments. I'll just put it right
that would be great. And for those of you who would like to capture the group chat, if you go to the little more button and click that down arrow, you'll see a thing that says save chat, and you'll have all of the information, including the Dr. Bakhari's website. So thanks again, Dr. Bakhari. We appreciate it. I understand that you hadn't been feeling too well and you came out to join us anyway. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Have a good night. Take care.
Okay, you too. Good night, everybody, and we will see you back here again next week. Bye for now.